open that deal.
I was going to wait till the introduction was over, but...
Yeah. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Today we're here for another podcast interview, whatever you want to call it. I got my good friend here, Jake Lipke. And before this gets started, I do want to thank Casey Rotella for these chairs that we are using. He gave me a really sweet deal on them, and I greatly appreciate it. So if you're watching, thank you. I greatly appreciate this. So to get started, who are you? What do you do for work? Just tell me a little bit about yourself, Jake.
Yeah, so my name's Jake. For work, I went to UB for 4 years for mechanical engineering, obviously. After that, looked for a job right when COVID hit, is when I graduated. Ended up falling into a pretty good gig over at Inficon in East Syracuse. I'm a mechanical engineer in the R&D department over there. So it's basically new product development for gas analyzers of all sorts and all sorts of different applications. So I basically get to play with stuff, design stuff, draw stuff, and yeah, that's what I do for a living. So my racing is I'm a diehard bracket racer. I do like to watch other stuff, but that's basically my niche is bracket racing.
If you could explain bracket racing in layman's terms for the few people that don't know exactly what it is, I'm assuming there's probably like 5 people that may not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So basically, bracket racing is your standard 1 versus 1 person, 2 cars. The tree's set to a handicap. So basically, you dial your car in what you think it might run. Whether you're playing games or not is a different story.
Yep. Whether you're holding a few numbers or yeah,
I've been known to do that a time or two. Not too
bad. Really?
But yeah, 2 cars. 1 car gets let out first. The other car is let out second. Theoretically, if both lights are perfect and both cars run exactly what they should run, both cars should cross whatever the 1/8 mile or quarter mile at the same exact time.
Yep. So the slower dial car will leave first, the faster dial car will chase, and it's the truest form of racing, of drag racing, in my opinion. It's the one that keeps the tracks open all year round.
Right, because it's good for low buck guys as well as guys with a lot of money that spend a lot of money on their stuff.
And that want to go racing competitively every single weekend.
Yep.
Bracket racing is where you go. It's not necessarily a dollars game.
Yeah, anybody can win.
It's a math game. It's a big math problem.
Yep. Basically.
So speaking of bracket racing and drag racing, I know just from knowing you, that's really where you got your start in motorsports. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. When did drag racing come into your life?
So I think drag racing came into my life before I was born. My mom's father, he was a drag racer back in the 80s. He had a P-stock automatic Malibu wagon. Around the same time, my dad was old enough to drive a car, so he was buying cars and building engines and racing them on streets and tracks back in the day.
Well, that's what you did.
Yeah. So I was pretty much doomed from the start. I say it started as soon as my parents walked me down the track at the bracket finals in a stroller. It's never left me. It's what I love to do, and I love the people I do it with. So.
And you got your start just like I did in juniors.
Yep.
And that was what age did you start at?
So I started right when I turned 8. Okay. I'd been going to the track with my dad early in the morning to watch him race ever since I was old enough to be thrown in a truck and taken to the racetrack. And obviously growing up and wanting to do it and playing with my cars in the trailer at the track and watching everybody, I couldn't wait to do it. So when I turned 8. Right before I turned 8, my parents and we went down to North Carolina to get the infamous Strickland dragster. It was a blue dragster with white icicles up the side, and it said Iceman on the side. So that was my start. We took it home. We took the Iceman stickers off because my stepfather, Eric the Iceman Sadowski, it's big shoes to fill. I couldn't quite replicate that. So we peeled those Iceman stickers off. We ended up powder coating the cage silver, and then threw the body back on. But when we powder coated it silver, the reason I wanted it silver was, one, the Chevelle, my dad's
Yep.
70 Chevelle, that,
Yes.
probably my most special car to me.
I think it's a lot of people's favorite cars.
That's silver, obviously, and also back in the day, Howie Smith's dragster had a silver cage on it, and I really liked that. And Howie's always been a guy I looked up to, so that was history. And that car and we had a lot of rounds together, from 8 to 11.
Hate that car.
That car was,
I hated you in that car.
That car was good.
I don't know how many times we raced, just between junior A, junior B. I don't know if we lined up a whole bunch, but I remember the times that we did, it wasn't good for me.
That was a good car.
It also wasn't good for my brother that much either. But
yeah, it was the two best cars I had that I'd ever raced was that Strickland Junior and then the Camaro I raced today.
So since you got an early start like I did, we all kind of grow up with heroes and people that influence to do better or keep going in drag racing. Who are some of your heroes? Who kind of influenced you in what you're doing today? Just who? I mean, even if we just go to who's your favorite driver growing up?
Yeah. So I mean, that list is pretty long.
I can relate to that. I can name like 10 people. I enjoy watching or have gone.
Right.
Oh, he's really cool.
Yeah. So I mean, the list is really long. I'll try to keep it as succinct as it should be, but. Obviously, my dad. My dad's my hero. He's the reason I race. He's the reason I push myself. He's the reason I go out and work on my car more than we should during the season. But
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
my dad for sure. When it comes to racers that I've always looked up to, I've always thought of me racing as me and my dad as a team. It's me racing, my dad with me. He does everything, whether it's calm me down, help me out. But
He's crew number one.
yeah, he is my crew. When it comes to racers, I'd say the guys that I've always looked up to the most is one, Steve Doss, as most people probably know. He's done more for me in the mental aspect of racing, from the burnout box to the shutdown, than anybody. He's one of my heroes growing up. I used to love. I mean, the Purple Haze Monte Carlo is infamous. That car is one of my favorite cars of all time, and he's in my opinion, he's the best racer I've ever met.
He does really good wheelies too.
Yeah, he does awesome wheelies in every car he owns, and he also kicks my ass in his dragster too. But so I'd say Steve Doss. A couple other guys are Big Gene and Little Gene. They've known me before I was born. Whether it's Big Gene taking me for rides in the orange wagon, or Little Gene taking me for rides in the orange wagon, and Big Gene, just calling me every day after I race to let me know how I did, whether it's some bonehead mistake or pick me up or tell me I'm a hitter, which that's always a good phone call, and I always look forward to those on Sunday. But
yes, both of those two I always look forward to talking to during the race day or just seeing out randomly. We see Little Gene quite a bit now with our Sunday activities, but
yeah.
I understand, going back to when you said your dad was kind of like your hero and the person that got you into that, I relate to that wholeheartedly. He's the reason I'm doing all the things I'm trying to do now, is because I just want to be better and make racing a full-time deal, because that's everyone's dream. And without my dad, much like you said, I wouldn't be where I'm at or even doing the things I've been doing. So I completely would relate to that, and I understand where you're coming from for that. So in motorsports, we travel a lot, we do a lot. It's almost a full-time job, and we create a lot of memories. What would be your favorite? I'm sure you have a handful, but what? Well, you've had a good career so far, so it's going to be hard to pick out just one. But what is like your favorite? What are a few of your favorite memories?
I'd say probably my proudest moment, was winning King of the Track this year. Like I said, I've been going to ESTA my entire life, racing, growing up watching everybody race. And then I finally get the opportunity to race against some of these guys, the Mike LaRoses of the world, the Steve Dosses of the world, my dad, Little and Big Gene, the list goes on and on. Being able to race against those guys, and then not only race against them, but when the cards fell right, I was racing for the opportunity to be king of the track, and
which is huge. And king of the track, explain it for the people that aren't aware of what that is.
Yeah, so everybody that we send to the Northeastern bracket finals every year, pro, super pro, bike sled pro MX, and street money. We race off for the king of the track. So all the number one guys in each of those classes that we bring to the brackets, we draw chips, and the four of us get paired up, and we race for what is known as king of the track. All the guys in first place race each other, and that's the prize for that is a gold Wally. And ever since I was a kid, my dad's got a few Wallies. He's quite the racer, and I've always wanted one myself. And to get that one was very special, and that's always been the dream of mine, because I think it's kind of the pinnacle of your local racing.
A Wally is the highest awarded trophy in drag racing. I don't care, like you, I'm sure, or like you, I can assume that you're a lot like me when it comes to, it doesn't matter about winning that money, winning anything.
Yeah.
When you get that Wally, I can assume I have a junior Wally. I won junior,
right?
So Wally Day for junior. So I don't have nothing compared to you, but I can relate to the feeling a little bit. It was an amazing feeling, because that is the pinnacle of drag racing.
Right. And Chucky White put it to me a good way when we were talking one time. He said, you win at the track, you win pro. I mean, it's a pro, super. In my opinion, that's a big deal. There's a lot of good racers in both classes in this area. ESTA, Empire, even out to Buffalo. Back in the Skyview days too. There's a lot of good racers. So to go through that gauntlet and win the race, it's pretty special. Especially for me, growing up and watching these guys, to just be out there racing against them is big. And to beat a few of them on a day and get lucky, it's a big deal. So at the end of the day, you win a race, you walk away with an envelope and some cash. You don't typically walk away with something that you can physically hold and look at. The money's going to be gone.
Yeah, the money's already spent before you even get it.
Yeah, it's not a money-making proposition. The money's great, but the fact that you come home from work, or you come home from the garage, or you're hanging out, and you can see the Wally, and it brings back all those memories. I can remember exactly who I raced. I can remember exactly what my lights were. I had Tom Doig first round, and then I had Kevin Wiest in the final for the race-off, and the whole time I had Mike LaRose standing up in the staging lanes, who's
that's not an easy person to have watching you.
Yeah, it's tough when a world champ tells you you're doing good. To focus.
Yes.
And this is your first step to hopefully something pretty good.
An amazing human being as well.
Great
but
guy.
Having him in your corner is a little daunting, I'd assume.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that he roots for me.
Yes.
We've raced each other a few times, but he's always tough, and our races are always close. But there's a few guys when you line up next to him that you kind of get up on the wheel a little more. And
you put in the back of your head going, this guy is sharp, and I need to be sharper.
Yeah, you sharpen your pencil a little bit sharper for those races. But
how many Wallies have you won?
So I've got two both this year. It's been tough to race. You only earn them once a year. You run for them once a year, and ever since I was 16 in the Chevelle, our silver Chevelle, that's the car I first raced. I would race for them in street money, and then pro too. The Chevelle is more of a street money car.
Yeah.
It's not a dedicated bracket car. My dad does. That's the thing. My dad does really well in that car. I claim to be a pretty good driver in that car, because it's not driver friendly. To race the car,
you're still on the column.
Yeah.
You're still it's a big Chevelle. It's not.
Yep.
From the outside looking in, it can't be the easiest car to wheel.
So he's won a Wally and Pro with that car, and I've tried multiple times in that car to win one, but I was out to school obviously from the time I was 18 to 22. So I only came home once to race for one. So it was really my first couple shots at racing for a Wally last year and this year with my Camaro. Last year I raced for the Wally and I got down to 3 cars. It was me, Al Meyer, and my stepdad Eric.
Yep.
Eric had the bye to the final. I had Al in the semis. And I was pretty good that day. And I was having issues with my starter. My starter was barely cranking. We were beating it with screwdrivers and cooling it off. And I was basically hot lapping the car back up into the lanes, charging it. And went to go up for the semis, and the car just wouldn't start. I had my dad and little Gene there trying all they could to just get me up there because, it's racing for a Wally. So that was my first shot at racing I consider that like my first big shot at racing for my own Wally. So that was heartbreaking, obviously, to miss out on the opportunity to race for one, So then this past year, Wally week comes around, and I ran Pro and Super. They didn't have buybacks that day because there was threat of rain later. I remember I went 001 red first round of Pro, which is always tough, to be that close. And I typically try to cut myself a lot closer than, I have to be. But, anybody can lay down a great package. And I hate to be on the wrong end and say I didn't do my part.
And because that first round light could be a next round bye if things work out.
Yep, so that was tough. So I was out of it in Pro, and then Super. I believe I ran Scott Popple first round, and I was like 40, and because I just bulbed, so I was cautious. I was like 40, and he was 00, and it's at that point it's tough to recover. So I lost that race, and I said, well, what the heck? I can't buy back in Pro, so I went back to my trailer, got some cash. Threw some cash at the tower lady, who just so happens to be my sister, and joined Modified, where it's a mixture of Pro and Super cars.
Yep. So you're racing against door cars and dragsters in that class, much like Super Pro.
Exactly. Guys off the top bulb, guys like me off the foot on the bottom. Modified's typically almost an entry-level class for the beginning bracket racer. But on Wally Day, it's usually pretty tough because a lot of guys will jump in for the opportunity to win that Wally.
Yep. It's funny that Modified is the more beginner class because street money should be, but street money is just a cutthroat class.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Tight these days. It's been tight for about the past decade or so, especially now with the brackets too.
I would put that as top 3 of the hardest classes we got there.
Right. So ran mod. A couple rounds went my way. I made it to the final. I won mod that day, which was nice. It was my first Wally. It's always special to win the first one.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though it wasn't the one I wanted. It doesn't say the words that I wanted to say. That was my first one.
But you still put it up on that shelf. No one can read the words.
It's still up on the shelf.
Still up on the shelf.
But what I consider to obviously be the Wally that I own and the most special one, it would be the King of the Track.
So you had a really good year this year. You piloted a few different cars. You raced a bunch.
I did.
Let's just go through your season real quick because it's actually a really amazing season. I wasn't there much. I was cheering from my phone at home. But tell us about your season, your 2021 season.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So it started off just like every other season. This was my first full year start to finish in my Camaro, my 95 Camaro. It's a 406 small block, naturally aspirated, 3-speed turbo 400. Car weighs about 3450 with me, give or take. It's like 3424 to be exact, but I like to say 3450 to make it a little heavier.
It's easier numbers to remember.
Yeah. It's 670s in the eighth. Quickest I've ever been is 1070 at 125 in the quarter. So
it's right where you want to be for a bracket.
Yeah, it's the bread and butter, and it works for me. So ran my car all year. Ended up second in points by 1 point at the end of the year, 1 or 2 points, to Ryan Kiskowski, who's also a really good racer.
In which class is this?
Pro. Ran Super a few times with my car. Did pretty well a few weeks, but every time I got down to 2 or 3 cars, Mr. Doss always had something to say for me, which was good. I always
Mr. Doss says you ain't ready for this yet.
The professor always likes to remind the student who's the best. So ran Super a lot. Funny enough, Steve let me run his. He's got a Firebird, same generation as my Camaro. It's a street car with a stick in it. I'd always wanted to run the stick shift class.
I remember you saying this was the most fun class you've raced.
It might be the most fun I've ever had, just going out and racing a car. With my car, I tend to put a lot of pressure on myself.
Yes.
Because
you've put the time in, you've put the money in, you've spent countless hours on it. This is like all of this work has come to this
to culminate
moment. Yes,
in round wins.
To make this worth my time, I have to win.
Yeah, to make my dad happy, I got to go some rounds. But so he said it was kind of a drunk Friday night phone call. He was picking up his new dragster, which he waxed my ass in later this year, and he was out somewhere with his stepson Nick, and I was texting him, and he shot me a phone call, and we talked about the stick race that was going on the next day, and he said, "Run my Firebird," and I was like, "You sure?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, I got to get the trailer, and my truck's here, and I got to do all this in the morning." He goes, "It's a street car. Start it up and bring it." So, funny enough, I woke up early in the morning, drove over to the Doss compound, and Tracy opened the garage for me. We had to push a junk Mopar out of the way that wouldn't run, but then I backed her out, and it's the only real things with stick shifts that I've ever drove are, my dad used to have a Ford Ranger back in the day that we, was just a whatever truck. And then his 7.3 dually. Those are really the only things with sticks in it.
I actually wanted to ask, what is your experience? Because like me, or like my experience, is very minimal because just anything we race doesn't have a stick.
Right.
There's not much of a use for one in a daily driver aspect anymore.
Yeah.
It's just so I found it really amazing that you just hopped in and did as well as you did.
Yeah. So I'm very much a off the cuff, fly by the seat of the pants kind of guy. So. Really the only stick vehicles I'd ever driven on the street is my dad's dually to any extent. So I go over there and I hop in the car and
I can imagine those two are super similar.
Yeah, they're very similar, So I hop in this LS-fed beast and I'm like, well, I guess I got to figure out how to drive this thing, so I'll learn it on the way to the track.
About how long is it? How long of a drive was it? From
Codnoy, where he's from, to the track is about 10 minutes.
Oh, good. So you got a lot of experience.
10 minutes to figure the car out. So I hop in it and fires right up.
Oh, yeah, it's an LS. You're not going to have any issue with an LS.
Yeah, I love that car, and he knows it too. I'd love it as a street beater myself, and that's what,
Well, those year's Firebirds are probably one of the best looking cars
sexy, yeah.
GM's made.
Yeah, that's
and
what I
probably going to get a lot of hate for that, but I don't care. It's the truth.
They're hot. So hop in this thing, bring it to the track. I roll up in it, and my dad's at tech, and he's looking at me like, "What in the hell are you doing?" Which is typically what he looks at me and says. So inherently, I said, "Well, Steve said to run his car in the stick race," and he's like, "You've never raced one."
He's going there going, "Oh, he's going to break it. It's going to cost him money." It's just the stuff that we don't think about because they've lived enough life. Oh, yeah. They're like, "Oh, this is how this is going to go."
Yep. And my dad used to race a stick car. One of his Blue Nova used to have a stick in it. So he kind of told me the basics of it before. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I guess there's no way to teach you than to just go out and do it. So
you have the best way to go about it is just jumping in and doing it. It's like a lot of things in life. You can read up on it, you can watch enough videos on it, but you don't learn shit until you actually just go do it.
And that's the truth. You can read everything online you want to, but until you strap the seatbelt on and buckle your helmet up and the tree falls, you're clueless. I don't care who you are. I
don't care what background you come from.
Yeah.
The only way to get better at something is just jump in and do it.
Yeah, so I hopped in it. Right before they called the designated time trials for the class, I said, well, I got to make some open time trial passes. I just got to get my feet wet and feel the thing out. He told me to do a burnout fourth gear, which I couldn't do. I kept stalling the thing. So I did it in third gear, and it worked out pretty good. So just stuck it in third, rolled it right through, put it in the beams. Staging the stick car was probably the most difficult part about driving it after all day.
Because your beams, you only got, what is it, like 16 inches or something like that? You have to roll into this. Yeah, it can't be.
Yeah. So rolling
it's not like just feathering off the brake a little bit, bumping in. It's completely different.
Yeah, and that car's not like Grandma's Caprice, the clutch doesn't have a lot of give to it. You're in or out, and you need to rev the thing to get it going. So, rolling it inconsistent was tough. But once I got it in, it's got line lock, so 3 foot in it, one on the brake. Well, your right foot, your heel's on the brake, your toe is all the way down on the throttle, and you're all the way in on the clutch with your left foot. You watch the lights come down, and third yellow hits, you're off on the brake and the clutch, and you're away. And I remember the first time I launched in the car, it made a whole bunch of noise, and I was like, I've never heard that before, and I'm scared shitless because it's not my car.
It's not your car. If anything breaks, you and I are in the same fact of we have to pay for it. Regardless of what else that person says, we are making it right.
Yep. So I'm like, you know what? It launches, and he's like, shifted at 65. So I'm like, staring at the tack, just waiting. I'm like, you better not miss a gear. You know Dad's watching. And I know I'd never hear the end of it if I had a rubber arm in the middle of the track.
Remember that one time?
So, going down the track was the easiest part. As the day went on, I mean, it's not... I'm letting off the throttle, pushing the clutch in, shifting the next gear, and get back on it. I didn't miss a gear all day, which I thought was the most impressive part.
That is not the fact that you went to
the finals. But I thought that was the most impressive part. But as the day went on, my shifts, they quickened up, so less downtime on the clutch and more time on the throttle.
So now your ETs are going to be a little different.
Yeah, I ended up going a 1241 at 116 in the thing.
That thing's
so
cruising for that ET.
It makes great power. It spins like a bat out of hell. It just kind of set up to do that, so you're not chewing gears every
you're
other
not
week.
breaking anything.
Yeah. But that was probably the most fun car that I drove that wasn't my own this year. And then I spent, I think, 2 weeks in the Chevelle. I ran we always have a big street money race out there at Esta. And I ran that 1 week in Dad's car. I went to the third round, but it's tough for me to jump from the Camaro to that. They're so different up front. The rollout's so different, and I'm so tuned to my car
that my
lights
different.
are like 60s.
Yeah, but you don't even realize you're going from a Kirky seat in your Camaro to a bench seat in the Chevelle. You're going from shifting over here on your right hand to up on the column. Those things will change your whole day.
Right. But it's a very comfortable car to drive. You sit up straight. It's one seat belt. It's a shoulder belt, but it's got a lap belt too.
Yep.
But very comfortable to drive. Easy to see the finish line, but it's just different.
It's just different. So, do you ever think you'd ever build a stick car? After that, did you ever get like a little bit of an itch to?
I want one.
You want one?
I want one. The only issue is, to do it right, it's a lot of money.
It's just like anything really racing. As you look down, you're like, well, I don't want to have to buy things twice because I broke the okay one. Now I still have to buy the better one. You just
buy
look
once,
at it
cry once. Build it right, and hopefully you don't have issues.
Yep.
The LaRose boys with Tim LaRose's car, they did it right.
That thing's beautiful.
Because he can run it in pro and be competitive. The car's deadly. It's it's really.
And not only that, but he drives it.
Everywhere. Oh yeah, he's a good racer too. Anybody with the last name LaRose that I've ever raced against has been tough.
Yeah, I've yet to find an easy one to race.
I'm still looking for an easy one. I'm hoping someday. But yeah, I mean, he can run his car in stick show, and his car's head and shoulders above a lot of those other cars. And he's a damn good driver. So you better be on, and then he can tangle with some of the pro guys and really make some noise and win some races. So.
Absolutely. So kind of getting off of your race season. As good as it was, can't talk about it all the time. If you were to kind of look back and think of the best days of racing, kind of the glory days, when is your opinion on that was?
I've said it 1,000 times. I've beat it to death. Guys always ask me, why I don't do this, why I don't do that. People pick on me for being kind of an old soul when it comes to racing. I tend to not want to get away from foot braking. I don't use line lock in my car. None of the gadgets. No delay box. I really miss the days of pro when it was pro.
Yep.
When it was no shift solenoids, no trans brakes. It was guys having to shift their cars and watch their RPMs in the beams, leave off the foot. Those were kind of the glory days of pro.
Yep.
And it's too bad that when I got to pro, it seems like everybody's got the gadgets now. which I'm not saying is an unfair advantage.
No,
but I think it's more fun the other way.
You've proven it's not an advantage of any sort.
Well, racing's a lot of luck. It's it comes down to skill and the work you put in, which I do. But it's pass by pass. Anybody can win any
in the
race.
garage. It's not one at the track. It's one in the garage. It's one. That's where racing's really won.
Yep. But those were the glory days for me. You had everybody in pro. I'm thinking Mike LaRose Jr., my dad, Steve Doss, Eric, Howard. All them guys. I grew up watching them race off the foot. No gadgets. That's cool to me. I kind of like
the more human-esque version of the sport.
To take all the air out is kind of what those things do, and I like pro being the driver's class.
Yeah,
the driver
with the trans brake, you're not looking at RPM. You're not looking at you're not foot braking. You're leaving off a button.
Yeah.
Shift solenoids. You don't have to watch for your shift light or anything. It does it all.
Which I don't use one, by the way.
Oh, you don't?
I don't use a shift light. I don't use one. I got one.
Yeah,
I don't have a chip in it.
So you really like the beginnings of pro, kind of that era. So I'm assuming you're also the same way when it comes to like more professional level stuff.
Old school
pro stock was so good.
Yep.
Old school pro mod, old school pro stock, because we're door car guys. We don't really care about dragsters or funny cars or anything.
Monkey bar guy, no. I mean, they're cool.
They're cool. I mean, there's a lot of technology and stuff that goes into them, but
sure.
I don't care.
Sure.
I don't care.
To see them in person's really cool, and like you said, the technology that's behind these things is pretty incredible.
Not saying there isn't the technology in the pro mods and the pro stocks, but it's just having a full body it's cooler.
Some of my favorite cars are the early '90s Cutlasses, the Warren Johnsons, WJ the Professor. He's pinnacle of drag racing.
He was an engineer, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, by trade.
That's
He's
what
self-trained. Yeah.
You're following his footsteps.
His engineering is much more impressive than mine. He didn't have to go to school for it. But even the early 2000s days of pro stocks, those were awesome. Jeggy Coughlin, Jason Line, Greg Anderson. Right when Erica Enders kind of started is where I, not saying it's her fault or anything.
No, because if
down,
you're about to say she's a bad driver, then because she could drive the hell out of that thing.
Oh yeah, Dave Conley back in the Dave Conley days.
Things started to change and progress differently afterwards.
Yep.
So no, I understand. Yeah, that's about right where I'd fall. The beginnings of it. It's cool now, but it's just not.
Yeah, the mismatched body, chassis, engine stuff. I've been so out of the loop in pro stock, I couldn't even tell you the rules. Once they started going EFI.
I don't think I've actually watched an NHRA event 3-4 years probably.
Yeah, I love the stock, super stock. I wish I could watch that all the time. That's cool to me. Guys like Dan Fletcher, who's a local, and obviously a legend. That Camaro that his father bought brand new has the most wins in NHRA history. That's
And now I'm gonna get my facts wrong, but they're kind of right. Ken Bassett, my dad's business partner, raced with Dan at ESTA when they were all growing up.
Yep. So
it's just definitely a local guy, and now
who also has a Camaro.
Yes, he does.
That's beautiful.
So we went backwards. Let's go ahead and go forwards. What do you see happening with drag racing? Do you see it getting better? Do you see it kind of? Do you think they're ever going to realize they made a mistake in 2005, 6, becoming more technologically advanced, or?
I think when it comes to the NHRA series of talking the top 4 classes, funny car, top fuel, pro stock bike.
Yep.
I think they're really being drowned out by the no prep scene, and the small tire radial game. As somebody who doesn't do it myself, but will watch the races, those are much more entertaining.
Which one are you going to turn on a Sunday?
I'd rather
afternoon?
watch somebody go 360 in the 8th on a radial tire like mine.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy. Than watch Steve Torrance race a dragster. it's more relatable. It's I mean, those guys have a lot more money and time invested than me, but it's still kind of relatable. These are guys in their own shops doing their own deal.
These are still regular day people that you can meet, and they're not professionals. I'm not saying professional is a bad deal, but we all want to be professionals.
Most of them got a 9 to 5.
Yeah, most of these guys got a 9 to 5, and they're just doing really cool stuff in the radial and the no prep stuff. And
so I think that stuff, and as someone who really doesn't do it myself, like the no prep, the street stuff, as much as I'd like to put my car on the street and mess around with the thing, we had a no prep day up there at ESTA, and that was an awesome race to watch.
Yep, that was put on by Ty Ranger, Rowdy Racing, all those guys, and they're doing I think they're doing another one this year.
They should be doing one next year as well. And then Ty puts on a great event, and all of his staff that helps him out. They did a great job,
especially between the 550 and 650 series happening.
And that's another big thing I think the future of racing in general has is index racing. You got a number to hit, and you aim for the number. You can be faster than the number when you don't want to be on the number. When it's a normal week when you just want to go fast, and the 550 and the 650 break is perfect because you got guys.
They're both. If you're already building a car, they're both affordable numbers to hit.
Yep.
Which is the big thing, of course, because index racing is cool. You're both leaving at the same time
off a pro tree.
Yeah. It's about as heads up as you can get. That's super affordable for the most part.
Right. And it levels the playing field to a number. So guys with a lot of money, their money's not going to show between the beans, which is cool. I think the 550 and the 650 is great because 550 is for the guys that build really fast shit. They can just detune it and try to hit the number. And then 650 is for guys like me, that bracket race and their car just so happens to fall. Mine's a little too slow, but, a lot of these guys fall right within that range and get to have a good time doing that.
And the bracket racers have a huge advantage on the 650 and 550 side, and I know that from a fact because of Mr. Doss himself doing really well in 650.
Mr. Doss has an advantage over pretty much anybody else he lines up against, so he's good.
So if I gave you zero budget, what car are you building? What class are you running? What are you cooking?
That's a tough question.
Would you leave bracket racing?
I don't think I would. I love the spirit and the competitiveness in bracket racing. I just, it's what I grew up doing and I love it. I think if you gave me an unlimited budget and said you can build one thing, what would it be? I think it would either be some sort of stocker Firebird, like early 2000s stocker Firebird that's way below the index that I can go bracket race with. And if somebody's in my same, if somebody's in the same class that I am and it's a heads-up race, I know I got them covered.
Yeah.
It'd be something like that, or like a first-gen Camaro, same kind of deal. Stick car, super stocker. It'd be a lot like Dan Fletcher's. Well, I don't know if I'd go with a stick for the Camaro. Probably would. But I think if you gave my dad...
That's hiding out in there with you, isn't it?
I think if you gave my dad an unlimited budget, we'd build something cooler. Because, I think he'd want to... Well, I know what he'd want to build. He'd want to build a big block Singer that, a 10,000 RPM spike's not good enough for. But that would be really cool to build. And I'd like to see him drive something like that. But, I had a lot of fun. The low buck thing is a lot of fun to me. And I just like going out there and bracket racing and having fun. But, I think if unlimited budget, it'd be like a stocker Firebird or like I said, a Singer big block for my old man to race off a stick.
Because you and I are both pretty young at this deal. What would you tell some people that are just getting into drag racing or anything, any type of motorsports?
Yeah,
because we've been at it for a long time. We have a little bit of knowledge behind it.
Right, and a lot of it's tough to get into it out of nowhere. Like I had my dad and my mom too, obviously, who have supported me from day one, and to whom much is given, much is expected. So I was given 3 junior dragsters. I was given free lessons every single day. My dad has pretty much put his racing program backseat to mine. He does everything for me first, and then worries about himself. So that makes getting in and doing it a lot easier. But for someone who's just getting into whether it be bracket racing or heads-up racing or street racing or any type of motorsport, you got to start somewhere. It's best to talk to people that do it successfully.
Yep.
So find some people that do things well. Find someone that you kind of want to be like, not copy or imitate, but someone who the position.
Find a good role model.
Right, and start picking their brain because knowledge is power. Once you learn a bunch of stuff, then you open a lot of doors for yourself.
And not only talk, but if you do sit down and talk to those guys, they can provide good lessons, opportunities that you wouldn't expect.
Right.
Because believe it or not, I'm sure a lot of them are looking for someone to help out because they got all this knowledge and not a lot of people want to know.
Right.
Not a lot of people care anymore.
Right.
But they definitely want to sit down and talk to someone just as much as you probably want to go and talk to them.
Yeah, the coolest thing is somebody coming up to you and complimenting your car or asking you about it. If you're really into it, then that's, one of the coolest things. For me, it's just, I've never been on the other side of the coin. I've always been on the young kid, always asking questions, always bothering people, looking up to people. I've never been the this kid looks up to you type deal. This kid asks you questions, or even someone younger than you.
Yeah.
Shout out to Zach Golly. But,
I got a question for you, Zach. It's coming.
But when Zach, asks me questions and just bullshits about me, it's pretty cool because, that's one guy who I see as he's going to be a real good racer, but he's a good racer who's grown up around it. And, he's kind of like me in a lot of ways. He was born into it. He didn't really have an option. So,
yeah. But he's taken that and he's become, I don't want to line up next to him. I'm good. I'm going to avoid his lane.
He's tough. He took out Steve last year in the street race. And, and took
if
home
I'm not
that big
mistaken,
win.
he has a Wally as well.
He does have a Wally. Him and I won one the same day.
And so, yeah, that's your tell. If someone has one of those, they're probably pretty good at this deal.
Or they're getting there.
Yeah. So, one last question, and we'll wrap this up. This one is coming from Zach.
I already know the question. And
EFI or carburetor? Well, as I'm pro EFI.
And I am no EFI. Let's put it to you this way. If I could rip the fuel injection off my 6.0 Chevy that's out there and stick my Mark Sullins carburetor on it, I would.
Well, there's a thing that allows you to do that.
Yeah, but E85's tough to get these days, so that's the only thing stopping me.
Especially up here.
I got an 850 double pumper, but I think it's too much. It's a gas carb. I think it's too much for my truck, though. It's kind of a turd. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm old school. Like I said, I'm an old soul. I've only ever grown up running carbureted engines.
Nope.
Carbureted big blocks till I got money, and then it was small blocks because I'm a small block guy through and through. My dad had to kind of go back in time, and everything's so much smaller now. So, but it's the same deal.
It's all the same.
They make good power for what they are, and I can't complain. But carburetor till I die.
Well, thank you for coming on. Is there anything that you want to ask, you want to tell, you want to share?
No, I watch the channel. I'm excited for your truck to get to a point where it's rolling around and then running. That's
we got a ways.
Yeah.
But
no, baby steps. People start at different points, but hey, it's going to be yours when you're done with it.
Absolutely. So, thank you for coming on, and thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, share it, like, comment, subscribe. All that stuff helps me out tremendously, help this thing grow. And actually, I got one more question after this. Is who do you want to see on this next?
Man, I think there's a couple people that would be real good for it. I think Ty Ranger. He comes from a different world. He's
on my list.
Yeah, it's good to get different perspectives. You had your dad, so you had your beginning. You had me, who's someone you've always grown up with doing this stuff, and we're obviously still super tight. It'd be nice to see how the other half lives with the no prep and the fast guys.
Yep.
And Ty's got more stories and connections than either of us probably know.
Yep.
So
he's out in Florida right now, so when he comes back, I'll have to get with him. But thank you for hopping on.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.
That's pretty good.